Hi, everyone. This is Miss Amber with the ABCs of Preschool. Thank you for listening. I'm so excited that you joined me this week. And today I have my friend Jessica. She's on the show with me, a fellow mom. I met her not that long ago. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, of course. Right.
Jessica did all my amazing photos. She did my photo shoot for all my marketing for my book, the podcast. I think you're an extraordinary photographer, by the way.
Thank you.
Like really amazing. So I was like, wow, I didn't know I can look that good.
Because she does look that good. She looks great.
You're so sweet. But Jessica's on the show, and we're just going to talk mom life. All of us have a story. All of us have a journey. All of us have a path that we're on. And sometimes that path doesn't go, well, actually, I'm going to say every path does not normally go the way we want it to go, right? So we might have something that we think is going to happen, but things just don't go always the way we plan. So today we're just going to have a conversation, and we're going to see where this show goes.
Yeah.
And Jessica's just going to share her story and her journey as a mom, and yeah. So welcome.
Yeah, thank you. So, I am from this area. And so, I have 4 kids total, and my daughter, who's currently 15, my son is 11, and I have almost 2.5-year-old twins. So it's a crazy house. But going way back to when I just had the first 2, not really knowing I would have more kids after that. A young mother, not really knowing what to expect with life. I actually really enjoyed the young days of my older daughter because we did the whole preschool thing, and that was really fun to experience. But then my second son, he entered into this world, and things were just a little different with him. And that's when we discovered more challenges, and he eventually, actually about 19 months old, he was diagnosed with autism, which is super young.
It's very young. Yeah.
Actually, my mom is the one who saw the thing. She's just like saw something that was off, and some red flags. He wasn't pointing, he wasn't waving, no eye contact, wouldn't come or acknowledge when his name was called. Those are pretty normal red flags they look for. I think it's called the MCHAT, which is one of the autism tests that they do. And so anyway, I went in and had him referred for the diagnosis through Kaiser, which was actually pretty easy to do 10 years ago, or, back then. Now it's a little bit more difficult because so many more kids are being diagnosed. Yes. So there's like a really long wait list. So we had that. He was diagnosed by 5 professionals right away. And then we started the journey of, we did ABA therapy. The youngest they'll let you start is 24 months. So we started that immediately, and it was in home, 35 hours a week, super intensive. It was like a full-time job for me, because I wanted to be there and participate. And those goals, they're based around your home routine. Like there was potty training. They helped me with potty training. So that was pretty great.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yes. And then, just goals around the house, like being able to communicate and do certain things. And so his sensory issues was a whole different thing. He, was kind of a crazy kid. He crashed, he jumped, he had no fear. And he still kind of doesn't have a lot of fear, but he was sensory seeking. And so we had to create an atmosphere for him that was safe all the time. And that was really hard because I couldn't take him out into public without fear he would run away. Wow. He ran into the street multiple times growing up without looking. In fact, we used to live in this neighborhood. And this was when he was much older. He ran into this street right down by the trail.
Wow.
Without even looking. He just ran right into the street. And I'm just like, as a mom, that's like one of your worst fears, with kids. And so he's always not really paid attention. So anyway, with all of his sensory issues, that was just a challenge for us. But we did the ABA, and that helped tremendously with so many things. And then we got him into speech, and we got him into OT. He didn't talk until he was 4. Which is so wild if you think about it. That's just such a long time for a child not to talk. lots of sounds, but no talking. So all of those therapies, because we did them so early on, the early intervention, it helped tremendously. We had him in special ed preschool through the county, or not the county,
it's probably the city,
or Western Placer School District.
The school district.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we put him in there, and oh my gosh, the educator godsend. Susan Beer, I think was her name. And I think she's retired now, but she was amazing. And I am so grateful for we're blessed. Every educator that helped my son was amazing. And I just, thank God every day that we got those people to help him, and they cared for him and loved him. And, they would come to me about any worries. And it's just like, that's not easy, because you are your child's advocate, and you really are the only person fighting for them. It's no one else's job. So when you do come across people or educators or just anybody who's willing to help you, it's such a big deal. So I was really grateful for that. So we did the special ed preschool. And then we moved up to general education at Creekside Oaks in Lincoln.
Oh, okay.
And their special ed program was phenomenal. It was great. And so we did get to a point though, where it was just time to homeschool. And that was more of an intuition call for me. And so we moved over to that, and that's been a little bit of a journey, because right when we decided to do that is just around the time, I think about, I don't know, 8 months later or something, our house burned down. So that was the year of 2020. And we had just moved out to the country. We just bought a house. My husband spent 6-7 months gutting, remodeling, doing all the things. But we loved it there. We loved it. We didn't care that our, house was under construction. We finally got it to a place where it was like, okay, we're good. And then like a week later, our ATV exploded in our garage and just took everything down. Like, it was the craziest fire. 8 fire engines,
wow.
Airplanes dropping loads of fire retardant, like 3 loads.
Wow.
Yeah, because it was in the dead heat of summer. And so everything was super hot.
And it gets really hot here where we live, like really, really hot.
Yeah. And thankfully, my husband, he told me.
Were you guys home?
So my husband and my son were home, and they were major PTSD from that fire.
Oh
major. I was just down the street at my friend's with my daughter getting my hair done. She's a hairstylist. And I missed like 15 phone calls because she was just rinsing my hair.
Yeah.
And so I called my husband back, and he's like, you need to get home now. Our house is burned down. And I was like, what? And so I drove home watching my house burn the whole way home. It was the black smoke up in the air because I could see it. And just arriving on scene, it was just so scary and so sad. And, I've learned so many things from that tragic experience. But at the end of the day, everything is material. Mm-hmm. Everything. You can replace, for the most part, you can replace everything. Mm-hmm. I did lose my wedding rings and, baby albums, wedding quilts, baby quilts, all those things. And, that was the hardest. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, we were so lucky to have had everyone safe and alive.
Yeah.
I just can't imagine going through that, having lost somebody. And I know people do all the time in house fires, so we were grateful for that. But we walked away from that day. We got in 2 of 4 of our cars were burned. So we had 2 cars after, but we got in the car and drove away with nothing but the shirt on our back. And we're just like, what do we do? What do we do now? And so that experience was so eye-opening. So we did our best to try to figure out what we were going to do. And a couple months later, we moved into this neighborhood, into a rental, mm-hmm. and trying to rebuild our lives. And then I got pregnant with twins. And so the story continues.
Was all in 2020?
All in 2020. Uh-huh.
Wow. So homeschooling,
the house fire,
uh-huh. And then pregnant
with twins.
On top of a worldwide
COVID.
COVID.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you know, so
Yeah, that was,
holy-
and my husband lost his job. Yeah, he lost it right at the beginning of COVID when they were laying everyone off. And so, yeah, that year was like, it was a crazy year for everybody, but for us, it was like times 10, you know,
like horrible.
Yeah, horrible year. So I got pregnant with twins. I didn't actually even know they were twins.
Does twins run in your family?
No, they don't. But so fraternal twins are genetic.
Okay.
Identical twins are not. They're luck of the draw.
Oh.
And I got luck of the draw. Lucky me. Twins are hard. But yeah, that whole pregnancy was crazy because with twins, it's a different game. There's a lot of different requirements in California. So we won't get into those details. But man, if anyone wants to chat like birth of twins, I'm here for it because it's just a whole different thing, a whole different animal. They require a lot of things with the hospital and everything. You're more high risk. So my pregnancy, I spent most of it researching to make sure that, you know, I could still have things the way I wanted to in a safe way. But anyway, so we had our twins, and then our home insurance that was paying for the rental, it times out. And I didn't know that it doesn't time out when you start building your home or when your home is finished or anything like that. It's from the day of the fire.
Seriously.
And because of COVID,
is that like just like every insurance, like that's just policy?
I feel like every policy is slightly different.
Wow.
And that was our policy. But we didn't learn that until like 6 months to a year later.
Wow.
We kept saying like, well, what's our deadline for the rental?
Mhm.
And they said, oh, it's from the date of fire. And because of COVID and how difficult it was to source building material and get anything done, we didn't even start building at least a year after the fire. So we're like, well, where do we go? So we got out of the rental and we packed up our 4 kids, and the twins, I think, were about 6 months. And we all moved into an RV on our property. Yeah. While we started the process of building. So,
okay, home life in an RV.
Yeah.
Babies.
Yep.
All of you.
Mhm.
Can you explain that?
Yeah.
For a moment. Because I am a mama of 4.
Yeah.
But I cannot imagine when living all together in an RV for a long span of time when they were little.
Yeah. So it was like a year and 3 months or so. Wow. It was a long time. So we're kind of crafty people. And my husband he's a construction management guy. He builds stuff, you know, he's like that kind of guy. So we had a plan. I mean, nobody knows how to do this right.
No.
You know, we didn't have hundreds of thousands of dollars. Our policy hadn't paid anything out. So we were just working with very minimal money. And so we got a really old, what are they called? Container.
Oh, yeah, like a storage container.
Yeah. So we got a storage container. Yeah. And Jason, or my husband, it was like 40 feet long. So he insulated one side to be our office. And then the other half was storage, because we're living on our property. We have nowhere for storage, but we also don't own that many things. So it wasn't like a huge deal because we didn't like rebuy everything. Nobody rebuys everything right away. And so then we decided to purchase a newer RV for the 6 of us. And the goal was to buy another older big toy hauler that my husband was going to gut completely, rebuild on the inside so that we had something bigger for us. So the new one was just kind of temporary. Well, it was just like, I don't know if you've ever been in an RV that's not a fifth wheel, not super stable, but it sways.
It sways. It moves.
Yeah. I hated that. It was it was very tight in there, first of all, but it swayed and it moved. It felt very unsturdy. I didn't like it. And so I just counted down the days until the other RV was done. And that one was amazing. It was like living in a tiny home. So we sold the new one. We all got in the bigger toy hauler, even though it was older. It didn't matter. He put brand new cabinets, brand new floors, brand new paint, brand new everything. And that's the one we lived in for the majority of the time. And so my son stayed up in the loft. That was his bed for a year, like no room for him. You know,
Right.
we gave my teenager the room at the front.
Okay.
And my husband and I had the toy hauler area where you would have your toys. We just threw mattresses on the floor, and that's where we slept and co-slept with babies.
Yeah.
So it was definitely a wild ride trying to juggle nap time with 2 newborns, you know,
and you were homeschooling.
And I was homeschooling the older 2. So then we had classes going on and homework, and you know, a lot of the times I just kick the kids out of the RV. I'm like, go play.
Yeah.
Get out of here. It's nap time. And then cooking, that was a whole other thing. So we had our smoker, our barbecue, we had stuff outside. I did so much cooking outside, which was great.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever spent so much time outside.
Yeah, I know. I think on one hand, I mean, it sounds very stressful. And then the other hand, it almost takes you back to your roots where you probably don't want to be, but because of the circumstances. But like outside and nature and making the kids go play outside, things like that.
Yeah. Actually, one thing that I left out is he took a shed and he built it out to put our washer and dryer in it, a shower and a toilet. So we had like another warm place to go change and get ready and all those things. And so we didn't even use the interior RV bathroom or shower, you know, because we had that. So that was something that really saved us. But I will say getting up at like, I don't know, 10 o'clock, midnight, 1 a.m. when you have to run and go pee. And it's like raining and freezing like the weather last night.
Yeah.
And you have to run out of your RV and run, you know, 20 feet over to that. Like,
that's rough.
You are just like, man, I am thankful to live in a house where you don't have to go outside to the bathroom every time. I can't even tell you how many times where when we moved from the RV to the house, I was just like praying multiple times a day. I'm like, I am so thankful to have a roof over my head, even though it's not done. And our house was not done when we moved in, and it's still not done. It's a work in progress. But we moved in as soon as we possibly could to get out of the RV, especially because the toddlers, who were then, I would say about 18 months, they just needed to run.
Yeah.
You know,
and they're boys,
and they're crazy. And they were just getting to that age where they're just very cooped up inside. And our property isn't super kid friendly for littles, you know, so we really just needed an interior space for them to run. So we finally made it into the house, and that's where we're at. And we're so grateful to just, you know, be on a beautiful property in a house. Now, however long it'll take to be done, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You know, we're together doing that, raising the kids. So now what we're dealing with is the 2 boys. They are having speech and OT issues, which was a really big surprise to me. You know, I'm trying to juggle my business and I'm trying to juggle homeschool. And I'm a big advocate of, you know, family dinners, family home cooked meals to try to, you know, cut out the chemicals and the toxins, you know. So I cook from scratch everything that I possibly can. And so I am thankful for a kitchen for that, by the way.
Yes.
I was counting down the days to have countertops and a stove inside and everything. But, you know, juggling all of that, and now with their new issues, I just have like no bandwidth. And so when we talked about seeing other women on social media and how they have all their crap together.
Yes.
I really don't think they have all their crap together.
None of us have our crap together.
No, we just have our highlights that we put out, and what, you know, if I have a day where I'm like, well, I look decent today and the kids aren't screaming, so I'm going to do a quick selfie and make it look like everything is great. But really, I probably was going out of my mind insane when that was going on. But yeah,
I call it the mask. I feel like we all have a mask, right? We have this mask that we wear. Maybe it's because it's how we survive too.
Yes.
Like, I think as moms, especially, we have to put this mask on, like we're strong, we've got it together, because we have to have it together because we're raising our kids.
Right.
And we can't melt down all the time because we have our kids and we have our husband and we have all these roles. We're juggling our job, and like we are the ones that are we do it all. Right. We're doing it all. But if we're honest with each other, and this is part of why I wanted to do this podcast, is we will not have it all together all the time. And there's going to be like the really hard stuff that happens, the stuff that we have to go into the bathroom and lock ourselves in the bathroom and cry our eyes out and take a deep breath and like do a pump up, like, okay, I've got this. but that's real life.
Mhm.
You know, I remember multiple times raising my kids where I had to go away in my bedroom for a minute and just be like, okay, I gotta like talk myself up. It's hard. Like it's hard enough to be a mom. It's hard enough to be a mom when you lose your house, have to rebuild your house, you're pregnant. Like you had so many things on top of that. Have you processed? I mean, I think a lot of times too, we put everything like we stuff it.
Mhm. Oh, it's true. And I would have boiling points where
Yes.
I would just break down so hardcore and cry and say things like not nice things to myself, like I hate my life. Why did I have more kids? Why is this my life? You know, and that's obviously a moment of anger and all kinds of things bubbling over because I just didn't let those emotions out. Obviously, I am grateful for everything I have. We all have good and hard things in life, but we have to be able to express ourselves. But it doesn't help when we see other people on social media and they're like in their nice cars or in their nice something, and we don't have that thing that they're showing, or maybe they have kids and we don't have kids, or it's just always something that you don't have that you see other people have. And then it makes it seem like, you know, the grass is always greener on the other side, but it makes it seem like, you know, you just want what other people have and they're not showing the hard parts about it.
No.
You know?
And the grass, you have to water that grass wherever you are.
Exactly.
You know, the neighbors might be really green, but your grass can be green too, but you just got to water and care for it.
Exactly.
And I think social media has created this. I mean, that could be a whole podcast in its own. You know, it's created a delusion of life. I mean, truly, it's just this platform, and we're all guilty of it. Same thing. I don't put the moments where I'm breaking down and sobbing. You know, I don't, but maybe we need to speak about those moments more.
Right.
And like encourage each other to like help pick each other up off the bathroom floor. And like right now, like you're in the midst, you know, I feel like 0 to 5 years of raising kids is one of the hardest. Now there's teenage years. Everybody warned me about
both.
Yeah, you're both. And see, that's the thing too, because you have this years of gap, right? I can't imagine going now back and having like a newborn, having twos. I'd be like, oh my goodness, because I've also now gotten to a point where my older kids, so it's hard.
It's
really
a mental thing, like you've left that behind.
Yes.
But now I have to juggle both.
Yes. And you have to put your brain back into it. And you're in the hardest years. Like I really think it's the years where they're beautiful, they're magical, but they're also super hard because your kids need you all day long.
Yeah.
Like I try to explain this to the people, like when you have littles, like it's in one sense, it feels like, oh, they need me, they love me, because you're never going to have that time again where they need you so much, right?
Right.
And because when they get older, my kids are now almost all adults. My youngest is 17. She's practically never here anyways. They don't need me anymore, right? And so I just get to watch. It's a really amazing journey. I get to watch them grow and soar. But it's not the mommy,
hold me,
or screaming all day long. You're in that. And it's going to be just temporary. And that's why I want to encourage you. It's like, it's the hardest time of raising children. I always felt like when I get them to kindergarten, like it just gets easier, way easier after that. It's just these 0 to 5 years are hard. They need us for everything.
Right.
Everything.
Right. And you know, I know this is going to sound weird, but I wasn't expecting kids I just thought they were going to be normal. And when I say normal, I mean neurotypical, right? No speech issues, no OT issues. So this hit me and I had like a grieving moment. I was like, I thought they were just going to be normal and I wouldn't have to deal with this again. And that was so hard for me to accept because having children is hard. Having children with special needs is even harder. And now I have 2 of them at that age. Twins are hard. I feel like I have it all hard. And I know I keep repeating that my life is hard. I'm just in this temporary stage.
You are in a season of hard.
And I just feel like, will it ever end? You know? And when people ask, oh, what can I do to help? What can I do to help? And I'm like, I'm sorry, you can't do anything to help. I just have to be there for them. I have to be present. I have to be able to be mom, and nobody else can do that for me. But yeah, I definitely am guilty about not sharing any of that on Facebook or Instagram, social media. And, if only my clients knew, that's why I don't share, because I feel like they don't need to know. I don't want anyone to have pity for me. It's no one's business. But really, what it looks like from my side is I am doing everything I can to keep my crap together to be able to go to work and function. Like when I show up at a photo shoot, that morning was probably crazy. There was probably lots of crying. There was probably yelling on my end for my other kids to help me with the littles. And then I made it out of the house, and then I show up and I do my thing. But like, it took everything for me to get there. And that's how it is on a daily basis for me to go anywhere, to do anything. And I do try to appreciate the moments with this young, but it is just hard.
Well, I'm telling you, you're doing it beautifully. I mean, you showed up for my photo shoot, just super professional. And again, it's hard to balance it. I think you're doing a really great job. Like, I really do. I'm very impressed. And I think sometimes as women, it's nice to have a job. It's nice to have an outlet.
Yeah.
Or something else to just take that moment for yourself.
Right. It takes my mind off of what's hard, and it lets me do things that I do enjoy doing.
And I would encourage, like, in the heart of raising kids, yes, we want to give of ourselves to our children and be the best mom. But in order to show up the best for our kids, we have to have breaks, So like we have to have guilt-free breaks too. It's okay to get babysitters, have someone else watch your kids for a little bit, whether that's a nanny or a babysitter, or they're in preschool for a few hours a day. I'm all about like those mental breaks for moms, because without guilt, it is okay to step away for a little bit, because for us to show up the best possible way for our children, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, we have to have those breaks for ourselves. We're not a robot. We're not AI. I mean, we are just not. So we've got all our feelings. So hopefully, you can just keep getting those breaks. I want to back up just a minute with your son's diagnosis. Like, kudos to you. I've worked in this early childhood field for a really long time. And a lot of times parents don't want to recognize the signs or want to hear from others that there may be something to look more into. So that's a tremendous part for you, because early intervention is so helpful and so amazing. And that was 10 years ago, you said? I mean, imagine it now. I mean, even more, there's more tools, and there's so much out there to help, especially in the early years. And if you can intervene and dive in with help in the early years, it really can change, the trajectory.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many services from Alta Regional, and then there's, IHSS support, there's respite support. There's even, so when my son, when he was older, he was still having accidents, right? It wasn't just a potty training thing. It was just, I'm busy, I can't remember. It's not an uncommon thing, but it was just a little bit more severe with him, or nighttime accidents as well. And so one of the services or supports that we got free diapers.
Wow.
Or I'm sorry, pull-ups.
Yeah.
Right.
Awesome.
Same thing. For him, because that was an expense. And since he had a diagnosis and he was deemed eligible, he was able to get those services. And I think what a lot of people are afraid of is having a label on their child. Well, that is probably the most common thing that we hear. And I urge those parents to get their child assessed, even if they have to have a diagnosis, because they are helping their child more than they will ever know to get those services. You cannot get those services if you don't have a diagnosis. The label part, it doesn't matter. Like, nobody cares. No one even knows unless you're shouting it from the rooftops.
Exactly.
And the only thing that label or that diagnosis is doing is just getting them help. So it's not hurting them unless you're making a big deal of it.
Yeah, it's like any other thing. I mean, if your child was diabetic, or, you know, like
need a wheelchair
or need a wheelchair or something like that. There's so many aspects of being a human being, you know, mental well-being, just all of it. So I agree with you. And you can raise your child with that label, or you can choose to not raise your child with that label, and you can treat them as normal as possible.
Exactly.
But those resources are a gift. It's a gift. And if you are suspecting, go to the school district. Is that where you went? I always tell clients, like, go get tested.
Right. So we did Kaiser first.
Okay.
And
your
then
doctor. So that's doctor.
And Alta Regional at the same time.
Okay.
Because Alta Regional has an infant program.
Okay. So look in your, like, wherever you are locally, just start Googling like where to go.
Yeah.
And there's different
like county
programs, school districts, and there's different resources.
Yeah. I will say California is probably one of the best states for services, period. And there's a few others that are really good. And I'm hoping it's catching on over the years. You know, more states are offering services. It's gotten better over the years. So I've heard in other states, but California is phenomenal for what they offer. You'd be silly not to get the help for your child if they need it. But to add on to what you said about the whole label thing, you know, we haven't, and this is a parent preference, right? Every parent can do what they want, but we haven't told our son about his diagnosis. He's only 11. We feel like it would be a total crutch for him. He's the type of kid where he would use that to get out of things or, you know, whatever at his own benefit. And we just said, you know, when the time is right, when he understands a little bit more, or whenever, if he questions it or has questions, we can talk about it then. But we just don't feel it's necessary. So I don't feel that that label is hurting him. I don't even call it a label. I don't feel like his diagnosis is hurting him at all with people. Obviously, that when you talk to a child with autism, it's a little obvious in certain ways. So people, they're going to catch on whether that child has a diagnosis or not.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So yeah. We're really grateful that we were just pointed into the right direction early on. And I do try and tell parents, you know, encourage them to go do that. So we did like I said, we did the ABA, and I highly recommend ABA for kids who need that. But yeah, grateful for our area, man, so many resources.
I will say this area is really amazing, and hopefully wherever you live, you can get. And, you know, another thing I think is super important for moms or anybody struggling with anything like this is community, right? Like, surround yourself with a good group of women, people who can encourage you. I think community is so important, raising little ones, dealing with autism or whatever. I mean, whatever your situation is having just people around that love you and help encourage you. Yes, people can't do your job as mom, but you can go to lunch maybe and like have friends to encourage you on the outside, you know? So I think community, wherever you are in life, I think is super important for any woman. But
I totally agree.
I just want to say thank you. You've been through a lot, but there is sunshine. You know, after every storm, there is sunshine, and it might not be tomorrow, it might not be the next day, but there's always sunshine. And thankfully, time moves fast, right?
Thankfully.
I feel like, you know, some days feels like really longer than the others, but overall, like, time does move fast. So, you know, you'll be past these hard years.
And I'm sure I'm going to be grateful for all those hard moments. We always are looking back.
Yes, looking back, there's lessons in all the hard. There really is lessons, and like, oh, wow, I learned that, or I really appreciate this way more, you know.
I also want to add to that. I think that if I can say that God has given us specific trials for specific reasons, not just because he thinks we can handle them or because we're the type of person to handle them, because I think also that we are meant to be in other people's lives to help them through similar trials.
I got you. I agree 100%. Again, I think that's why I finally started this. After my brain surgery, I woke up in a very sense of spirit, like God. I just felt like wow, I just got through brain surgery. There's way more. And that's the power of sharing our story. Like, I really, truly believe there is power in our experiences. There's encouragement in our heart. It creates so much more empathy, right? And grace for others, because if you're standing at a grocery store and someone's snappy and grumpy, you don't know what just happened an hour before. Yeah. It's so easy to be like, that lady was really rude, or that lady was really mean, rather than step back and like, wow, I don't know what's going on with her right now. You know, we all have the really dark, and we all have like the really, really hard. And I think there's tremendous power and encouragement. And the same thing, I'm so thankful. I felt like God has helped me through the hard.
Like, really. So now you can help other people.
Yeah. And I feel like all these experiences, I've had a lot of health stuff. I don't know why, but our story can help someone else, you know? So thank you for coming on and sharing your story. There's a lot.
Thanks
there.
for having me.
Yeah, thank you.
To be continued.
Yes. Thank you so much for joining Miss Amber Me on the ABCs of Preschool with Jessica. Just want to send you guys with encouragement and love in these early years. They can be difficult. They can be hard. If you have a story to share, find me on my website, send me an email at thelovingstartway.com. Make sure to follow this podcast, and I'll see you next week on the ABCs of Preschool.